Hey guys, before today's episode, I want to let you know, stick around. The episode ends, there's no music, it's just Matt and I talking, and all of a sudden Matt and I go, all right guys, we'll see you next week. As soon as we say that, an interview begins, okay? I don't have my cord with me, so I can play my music through my soundboard, or I'd put it in right now. But I don't have it on me, and I don't have it to where I can access it. So, and I want to upload the episode today. So it is what it is. Basically, we stop. There's about a second and a half pause, and then the interview with Mark starts. At the very beginning of the interview, Mark was in kind of a bad area in his house, I think. So I had to delete about 20 seconds because it was inaudible. But for the rest of the interview, it's perfectly fine. So when I ask my first question, you're going to hear Mark come in about, like I said, 15 to 20 seconds into what he was saying, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And then it's fine. The rest of the time, there's really no issues. So I hope you guys enjoy the interview. I was only supposed to talk to Mark for about 10 minutes, and we wound up talking for 30 minutes, which is usually how this goes. So, Mark, if you're listening to this, I just want to say thank you very, very, very much for sitting down with me and donating your time. I know it's valuable, and I truly appreciate it. And I hope everybody here, honestly, I hope you guys all enjoy the interview. Please stick around to the end of the episode and listen to it, because I thought it was great. So, all right, guys, that's it. Enjoy the episode.
You've got a gun, you've got a big gun, you've got a gun, it's not a real one, and all you ever think about is running away, all you ever think about is trying to stay away from me.
And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the LoudMouth MMA podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Steele. This week, we have ourselves another episode of MMA Yesterday.
We're back.
We have arrived to
fresh.
UFC 12.
Dothan, Alabama.
Dothan, Alabama. They in the beginning of that event, they talk up Dothan, Alabama like it is like Rome or something. I mean, they are did you catch all that? They are listing off all used to be the peanut capital of the world. They're all jacked.
Oh yeah.
And then they show a circus. I assume that peanuts and circuses.
People walking in the woods and all the camping footage.
They love, listen, at this point in UFC's history, they weren't welcome a lot of places.
Yeah.
So, the places that were allowing it were probably saying, hey, we're going to throw you a bone. You better throw us a bone by basically treating this like a tourism ad.
Yeah.
A
little bit of synergy.
And really play up how awesome Dothan, Alabama is. And they're talking about too, one of the most, voted the best city in Alabama or something. It was crazy. None of that there's no way that could have been true. I have no idea what Dothan is.
Even
I've never
if
been
it
there.
is the best city in Alabama, that's still you're putting perfume on a turd and calling it a rose.
Sorry. I would say sorry to all of our Alabama listeners, but I'm also not sorry.
We're sorry that you're in Alabama.
Yeah, I'm more sorry that you live in Alabama than I am that you're offended by my opinion.
That being said, we're in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, we have literally heroin capital of the country.
Yeah.
If there's a documentary on the opioid crisis, it literally takes place in Dayton.
Oh,
There's been two. There's been one on HBO, one on Showtime. Both of them were filmed in Dayton.
Is that true?
That's absolutely true.
I haven't seen that.
That's 100% true.
That does not
we are the
surprise
capital.
me a bit.
Yeah, we are the capital, baby. All right, let's talk about UFC 12. This was a fantastic event, and I'm not just saying it. Seriously, this was an awesome event for a couple different reasons. The Scott Ferozzo fight, with Vitor got a little funky.
Yeah.
The Jerry Bolander fight.
Rogan's debut.
Was kind of funky. Rogan's debut.
Yep.
Can I just say about Joe Rogan here? We all know he's the man, right? We're all gigantic fans of Joe Rogan, and if you're not a Joe Rogan fan, there's something wrong with you. You probably live in Alabama. That's all I'm going to say. Joe Rogan is fantastic from moment one. Seriously, as soon as they cut to him for the first time, and you got this young Joe Rogan,
one ear pierced,
right? And he has the in ear in. It's bright white, a bright white in ear, so it doesn't even blend in. I think so. I think I remember seeing that. But anyway,
breath of fresh air.
He's fantastic,
Yeah.
right? And I think Blatnick is the worst of the two, right? Beck is fantastic.
Beck is really good.
Blatnick is fine.
Yeah.
But
he just stumbles over his words
he's
a
just
little bit.
not as good as Beck.
Yeah, but he's very knowledgeable. Of
Now
course.
you got Rogan, who's not just backstage, but he's in the octagon. He's the side of the cage. He's backstage.
They're going to be moving his role around all over the
Well,
place.
and that's
too.
what they
Yeah.
should have done from moment one. They should have had a guy, because remember they would cut to Don Wilson, the Dragon, finally gone, hopefully gone forever. But they would cut to Wilson, and he only is backstage, and that's it. And then he would go sit on the panel and give his gibberish of commentary.
Pride did this too.
What I liked about what they did here was that it should be one guy who backstage, hey guys, fight's getting ready to start. This is great. Back to you. And then fight gets over. He's next to the cage. How was it, right?
That's exactly what they did with Boss Rutan and Pride.
Good.
He would go backstage. He would interview the fighters before they'd go out and fight. Like some of the old Boss Rutan and Rampage interviews from backstage and Pride. Like those are some of the funniest MMA moments you'll ever see.
Wonderful.
They did that. That was awesome.
But what's also great about this, not just Joe making his debut, which obviously he's still around. We finally arrived to it, which we arrived to it a lot sooner than I would have thought. But we have our first fighter who is still active in the UFC.
Which is crazy.
Not just there's some of these guys are still a little bit active even before this, but we're talking about active in the UFC.
Yeah.
In Vitor Belfort, or as Blatnick referred to him, Victor Belfort. But yeah, Vitor making it. They kept calling him Victor.
Victor Gracie.
Like, here comes Victor, and like
Victor
there's
Gracie.
no
if you go back even further,
I could understand calling him Belfort because it's Belfort. I get that. I'm fine with that. But there's no C. So how could you call him Victor? It's right in front of you.
I don't know.
It's Vitor.
He took his head trainer Carlson Gracie's last name for a while when he was real young coming up. His name was Vitor or Victor Gracie.
Oh,
and then he became,
who he actually is.
Yeah.
Which is
But
Belfort.
yeah, like you can look up old posters of his, and it says
Now, was
Vitor
he
Gracie.
choosing to do that, or was that the promotions saying, we want you to play this up?
The Victor part or the Gracie part?
The Gracie part.
No, I think that was all him.
That's all him?
I think so. I think that was just his devotion to his guy.
Let's ask him.
Yeah.
Vitor, you're welcome on anytime, buddy.
Yeah.
Same with you, Joe. You're welcome on anytime.
Yeah, I hit Joe up. I'm mad. He didn't respond to me. I'm so shocked.
Shocking.
I assumed that Joe Rogan had time for a fan in Ohio with like 40 Twitter followers.
So
kind of a big deal.
The attendance for this event was 3,100. Of course, it was in Dothan, Alabama.
Yeah, they looked like it was in a high school auditorium.
It was at the Dothan Civic Center, or Dothan,
I think.
Dothan? It doesn't matter. February 7th, 1997 is when this took place. This is following Ultimate 96. Of course, right after this is UFC 13. We won't have another Ultimate until, I believe, we go to Japan, and I think that's the last one.
Sakuraba,
I
baby.
believe so.
Yep.
What else? Anything else about this? Originally, this was supposed to take place in New Jersey, I think. Okay, let me look. No, New York. Okay, did you notice in the introduction they talk about Niagara Falls? Did you catch that? Right? When you start it, he does a little analogy about Niagara Falls. Then it cuts to, they're live in Alabama.
Yeah.
The reason why is because this event was originally supposed to take place in Buffalo, New York. So when they filmed that little thing about Niagara Falls, they did so because they believed it was going to be in Buffalo.
How funny.
It then got moved from Buffalo because it got denied sanctioning. It would then go to Oregon. It then got banned from Oregon, so they had to go back to Alabama.
Damn you, John McCain.
Yeah, how weird, though, that of all places, Alabama was the one that didn't give a shit.
What do you expect?
There's
something, I've never been to Alabama.
But that's like the religious, zealot capital of the South.
I don't know. I feel like they probably got some good fights in Alabama.
They just don't care. It's weird. To me, I would imagine that Oregon would care less. But I don't know.
Alabama people just, they would just seem like harder people probably.
Sure. Sure.
I don't know, man. Southern people, they fight.
I guess. That has to be what it is.
I don't know. Everybody in the audience looked like they had been in a fight or two once before.
So basically, until 2001, they are almost exclusively in the South, outside of Japan and Brazil.
The South is just they don't give a shit. I guess.
And it says the UFC would continue to hold events exclusively in the southern U.S. aside from Japan and Brazil until 2001, where they finally got sanctioned by the New Jersey State Athletic Commission.
This seems like something that Southerners would do just because the Yankees didn't want to do it.
Sure.
Like they don't want the UFC up there in New York. We'll bring them down here.
We'll do it.
Yeah, we'll do it.
We'll prove it. This is also we have another kind of benchmark here. We have our first separation of weights.
Oh, yeah.
So leading up to this,
Multi-tournament.
Also, this is the infamous cage stuff. This is when it becomes a thing.
Oh yeah,
cage grabs. I didn't know. I was wondering when it was going to happen. You kept mentioning Oleg.
Yeah, you'll still see one. Like that's a big one because John McCarthy has talked about that in interviews before. That like the moment that he decided that it was really time to push to get that rule changed was an Oleg Taktarov moment.
Well, because they don't, and here he doesn't really do anything about it. But it is pretty egregious. I didn't even know leading up to this that it was a rule change. I didn't realize that was something that they were warning about. They should have. This should have always been a rule.
Yeah.
You couldn't grab the cage. It took a while for it, apparently all the way to UFC 12 for it to even be mentioned.
Yeah.
But in that fight, when we'll get to it, of course, I think it might have been the first fight, actually. Let me look. It was not the first fight. Yeah, it was. It was the first fight on the lightweight bracket. So that's one kind of moment. It's our first acknowledgement of not grabbing the fence.
By the way, those guys were not lightweights.
No. We also have a rather large upset that takes place at this event. I don't think anybody really expected one of the outcomes of these fights. We have, in my opinion, another throne fight. So we'll get to that. I'm interested in your opinion. I think that this is our second throne fight involving the same exact person, which is kind of interesting. I'll get to that. And also, we have now a separation of weight classes, right? So we have a lightweight tournament, which is anybody under, it's 199 and below. And then we have our heavyweight tournament, which is 200 and above.
And Vitor is like barely over 200, still fighting in heavyweight.
So why would he fight in heavy? Why not go down to light?
I think it's...
Any idea?
Boss Rutan talked about it at one point in time because he did the same thing too. He was a natural 205er, but he fought at heavyweight too. And all he really said about it is like, it's the heavyweight champ. Like that's the tip
Everybody
top.
wants
That's
to
the
be
peak. Like that's the best of the best. The baddest man on the planet's the heavyweight champ. Like you got to go for it.
Yeah. Now they split up. So you have the two brackets. So you have 4 fighters. So you have 2 fights.
Very small tournament bracket.
Very, very small. You have 2 fights, aka 4 fighters, and then a final. And then each one of those is awarded not a belt. It was like a medal. You got like a medal. They're given to you by Art Davie.
They were broke.
Things. Yeah, that's what it was.
They
right?
were just broke.
You got like a little medal. And then we had a super fight to crown the actual heavyweight champion, which would the heavyweight, the super fight, I guess basically is what it was.
Yeah.
The super fight for this card was Dan Severn and Mark Coleman.
Yep.
So let's talk about that first. That's the last fight of the night, but let's just go and talk about it right now.
Sure.
Mark Coleman continues to prove that he was the baddest man at that time. I mean,
and also the most jacked.
Oh my god,
he is so jacked, dude.
You don't think he can get more jacked? Then here he comes.
Yeah, from his last appearance to this one, like, oh my god, he got bigger.
He is so wildly.
It's crazy looking at him.
And I know I overuse this word on the podcast, and I'm so sorry because I'm going to use it again. He is so egregiously yoked.
He makes Yoel Romero want to hit the gym.
I mean,
he's so big.
I can't even. It's when he walks out, it's almost alarming. Like you're like, what? Like when your muscles have muscles, and then those muscles are starting to work out so they can get muscles of their own.
He's just red. His blood pressure's
and then
high.
And then when he winds up winning.
Yeah,
he winds up.
He's so
doing a neck crank on Dan Severn.
So jacked. I love
it, dude. When he gets up from cranking out Dan Severn, I thought he was gonna have a heart attack.
That celebration was awesome.
Like his foot veins, like
it was awesome though.
The veins in his legs, like
I love it.
I mean, he was just like, he looked like the Hulk. He just stood up and was like, whole face was dark red.
He looked like the Hulk. He looked like a superhero, dude.
I know it's such a weird thing to talk about every time.
But hey.
It's because it's so alarming. It's like, how is somebody that jacked?
It's like he looked like a bodybuilder, but he could actually.
I mean, listen, another
really
guy on
fight.
this, guy in this car was jacked in Vitor Belfort.
Oh,
that man looked
no known weaknesses and no known neck.
No, yeah, no neck for sure.
No neck. His
yeah.
traps go up to his earlobes.
I mean, anything about the super fight? Really? I mean, listen, Coleman.
It was awesome. I mean, there's
It was
not much to talk about.
It was two good
Coleman,
wrestlers going at it, and
Coleman was just way too much for him. Too strong.
Just clearly stronger.
Which is crazy because Dan Severn still looked bigger in terms of just like being tall and thick. Like he obviously wasn't as muscular, but Dan still was like the taller, kind of bigger looking guy.
Think of how strong Daniel Cormier is.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't. Physique doesn't necessarily equate to strength.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that being said, Mark just still manhandled him. He manhandled him, dude. There was nothing.
He had a hold of his neck. I mean, he finally got the neck crank. Basically, is essentially what it was, right?
Yeah,
it was
pretty
kind
much.
Of a crank,
yeah.
Or I don't know if it might have been an oxygen, just an uncomfortable choke.
Dude,
but
I guarantee you don't want Mark Coleman squeezing your head and neck.
No desire. And the position that Dan Severn is in, I would have tapped within seconds.
I think Mark
I would have
Coleman,
had no desire to be in that.
I think Mark Coleman might have the most neck crank submission wins in MMA history. We might have to look that up.
It's because he's just scary. Like you
did it in
got a
Pride,
guy this strong sitting on top of you. Ooh.
There was this fight in Pride. I got to go off course for a second. There was this fight in Pride. He ended up in this guy's guard. He was on top of him in the guard. This little Asian guy, like poor guy, rest his soul. Mark Coleman on top of him in full guard. He's got his legs locked behind him in the full closed guard. Mark reaches down with both hands, just grabs the back of his head and does that grip, just
and interlocked fingers.
Just pulls his head forward and just pulls his head forward, and the guy taps. It's so awful
because you're just
looking.
like, I don't want, like, I get it. Like you're on the bottom and you're going, this man, if he wanted to, could break my neck.
He tries to
I don't
pull
want that
his
to
own
happen.
face into his own his belly button. Like it's so awful looking.
Screw that.
He just you can't do anything.
That's awful.
You're getting out of that.
So let's move on to the tournament brackets. Do you want to go through the lightweight tournament or the heavyweight tournament first?
Save the big boys for last.
All right, so we're going to start at the lightweight tournament. First fight was Jerry Bolander taking on Rainy Martinez.
Bolander looking pretty sharp.
He looked a lot stronger.
Yeah.
He's definitely on the Ken Shamrock diet.
Oh, yeah.
He has really grown. Like literally, his physique has almost doubled. Like think of Jerry Bolander when he was when he fought Oleg.
Yeah.
Go back to the Oleg fight.
He's probably put on 40, 50 pounds.
Literally.
Yeah.
No joke.
No joke.
Like he looks like he has, like his physique looks like it's doubled. Like it looks like he ate the Jerry Bolander that fought Oleg.
15, 20 pounds realistically, but he looks big.
I don't know, man. I don't think you're wrong.
He still weighs in at like 200.
I think he put on a solid 40. He had to. He was so tiny, which is incredible to think that he was able to beat Scott Ferozzo when he did. I mean, it's nuts. The guy that would then go in and beat Tank.
Too.
Oh my God, we haven't talked about the fact that Ken Shamrock was on mic for a lot. Then they pull in Tank for a while.
Yeah, for the
they literally had to kick him off. They had to kick Tank Abbott off. What? I don't know whose decision it was to put Tank at the desk, but that's on them. That's your fault. You know the kind of person that Tank is.
Yeah.
Why would you put him on the desk?
Yeah.
I mean, of course he's going to get kicked off. He's making like fart jokes, and they finally just like, all right. And then he goes in his ear and he goes, well, they're telling me I got to stop, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. And then as he's like winding down and they're trying to cut away, he just starts going, I love you, give me a kiss. And he's trying to kiss Beck. I mean,
don't ever push me again.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what did you guys expect?
Yeah.
Of course that's what Tank is going to do.
I still laugh to myself thinking about that Beck and Tank moment where he's like, don't ever push me again.
Now, was that Tank or was that Ferozzo? That was Ferozzo, I think.
And you know what? You might be right.
I think it was Ferozzo.
Yeah.
So I bet you he was excited to see how the heavyweight tournament ended.
Man, Scott Ferozzo continues to be one of my favorite old guys.
I know, he's great.
These old days guys.
Well, and Ken Shamrock, or it might have been Tank referring to him as being a wannabe WWF guy.
Oh yeah,
and which is true. I mean, he really was in that. He had that going. I mean,
he was healing it up a little bit.
I wonder if Scott is one of those guys that we don't really talk about as being kind of the founding fathers of that idea, although Shamrock would definitely be there, but I don't remember Shamrock ever really playing that thing up. Ferozzo seemed to be the first guy to me thus far. I'm talking about thus far.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see Ken act like that a lot more around the time of the Tito Ortiz feud.
Oh,
like,
okay.
that's when that's going to really kick off for Ken. His wrestling career is going strong at that point. The Tito Ortiz fights are bringing him a lot of attention and money. He starts talking shit.
Okay.
Kicking chairs up at press conferences.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but up to this point, Ferozzo is the
He's the
first
guy.
guy to really. I mean, Tank has it a little bit, but I don't. His isn't fake. You can tell that Ferozzo's is a character.
There's more.
Tank doesn't feel like a character.
There's also more of an eloquence to it. Also,
yeah, he's a little smarter,
well spoken.
Yeah.
Like. He's like, these guys don't want me out here. They don't want me coming in here beating Tank up and doing this. I'm like, I love this guy.
He goes, the UFC knows. The UFC knows what they're doing. They don't want me. I'm not pretty enough. I mean, he is. He was, and that was last event, and he's doing a little bit of showman stuff here too. I mean, he really does. He gets it. He gets the crossover between the two sports, and Tank, on the
UFC
side,
12,
calls him out for it.
Way ahead of his time.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. I don't think he gets enough respect, but we're going to give him respect here. So that's good.
Scott Ferozzo, come on the podcast, homie.
The other fight was Yoshiki Takahashi.
Yes, Takahashi.
Takahashi
was a pretty well-known fighter at this time, too. He was a pretty big international star.
Taking on Walid Ismail?
Valid Ismail. He's gonna make the blood shoot out his opponent's eye. You understand? Everywhere you look, lefty, right, it's going to be covered in blood.
I also, was he the one that who was the guy? I think it was in the other fight. It was Rainy Martinez in the first fight with Jerry Bolander. Did we talk about that fight, by the way?
No,
I don't
we
know
just
if we
kind of
did.
skipped over it after
we
talked
did
about
because we started talking about Bolander beating Ferozzo. Bolander wins. He's been training with Shamrock this entire time. It becomes very obvious.
He looks good.
And he looks good.
Against a guy who really doesn't look very good, frankly.
And Rainy Martinez was doing that thing that you could tell in his
it was his
pre-fight
debut.
interview. When his pre-fight interview, he's doing that like, I'm just going to just make it uncomfortable. If he wants to go down to the ground, then I'm going to keep it standing. If he wants to stay standing, I'm going to take it down to the ground. When you hear a guy that says that, you're like, you're about to lose. Like that. You know what I mean?
You
like
don't really have a plan.
No,
do you?
you don't have a plan. Like if that's your first of all, how do you know what they want to do? Like you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like that when you hear that, you're like,
Are you that well rounded at the
you're
in
losing, buddy.
1997?
It's just like there's two tells. That's one tell. The other one is if they're undefeated in street fighting,
400 bare knuckle fights.
If they have 400 bare knuckle street fight wins, then they're going to lose.
It's fake. But also, it was his debut. The dude could have been legit, but I mean, maybe
we'll never know.
Yeah, we'll never.
He doesn't
know.
have a Wikipedia page, so he doesn't really do anything else.
Who knows?
And Bolander, again, training with Shamrock, and that's clearly who the UFC probably at that time wanted to win.
He's rounding his game out. He's putting on some muscle. He
looked good.
Yeah, he looked better.
So the other fight was Takahashi versus Ismail.
What a fucking stinker.
Yep. 15 minutes. The only thing of note, this was a decision win. Takahashi gets the win. He does not move on to the finals because he breaks his hand. And
I think the best part about this entire fight for me was watching Valid try and fight with his cup hanging out of his shorts.
Yep. Dude, he was doing the
flying
wedgie.
all over the place. Oh, yeah.
He had a big old wedgie, man.
That was hilarious.
He was pulling it up into him. For me, the most memorable is the fence grab. I mean, not grab. Fence grabs. Yeah. And and there's like 100 S's
fence
at the end of
holding.
it. I mean, fence, literally, he's trying to crawl inside of the fence. But the thing is, Big John is yelling at him to stop grabbing the fence. The guy doesn't know. He has no idea.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak English.
Yeah, not a bit.
No. And he keeps slapping his hand, and the Takahashi guy looks so confused.
Why does Big John enforce that rule so hard in this fight, and then literally the very next fight he completely disregards every single fence grab? Riddle me that.
Now this guy, the Takahashi, had kind of a mediocre career in Pancrase.
Yeah, but like I said, he had a career over there. Like he was a pretty well known guy at the time.
He comes into the UFC being 9-7-1.
Yeah, that's a lot of fights
all
at
of
that
his
time.
Fights, all of his fights being in Pancrase up to that point. He only has
that's where Boss was.
He only has the one fight in the UFC and goes back to Pancrase, and then does some New Japan stuff, Pride, back to Pancrase. So Takahashi never fights in the UFC ever again. He had his last fight September 29th of 2013, finished his career 30-27-3. A lot of those losses coming at the end of his career. Still alive, 49 years old.
60 pro fights, though.
Interesting little guy, man. Interesting guy. Like, I liked him. I thought he probably would have beat Jerry Bolander, to be honest with you.
We'll probably see him and some better fights of his as we go forward and maybe get to some Pride events doing this podcast. We'll probably see some better showings.
Because I mean, Pancrase is something we haven't really even talked about doing.
We should do a couple.
And he only has like 2 fights in Pride.
Boss Rutan and Frank Shamrock are over there right now, and they're both coming, and they're both going to mix things up in the UFC big time. So
Pancrase might be something we do at some point.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's that fight. The big thing with the Takahashi Ismail fight is the fence grabs. I mean, it becomes a really big deal. I mean, he keeps grabbing it, and Big John keeps slapping his hand, yelling at him, and it does change the flow of the fight. And I wonder if this was, even if Big John doesn't quite remember, I wonder if this really was the first time that he's like, all right, so we got to do something because this is crazy.
Maybe.
You know? Do you know when the Oleg fight is coming?
No, I don't remember what card it's on. I just remember him like up against the fence, like almost in what today's like wall walk position would be, and he literally just reaches up behind him with both hands, grabs the fence, and pulls himself up out of somebody's guard.
Jeez.
And stands up.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost as egregious to a certain extent.
Bad.
I mean, he literally is using it to control position entirely. It's
realistically,
crazy.
This whole fight is bad in terms of just like breaking rules and being a shit show.
Yep.
It's just like by far one of the silliest fights in all these cards that we've called so far.
15-minute decision, call it a day. Takahashi wins.
Could have done with it being less time.
Sure. We did not need the 3-minute overtime.
Sure didn't.
Keep it at 12. All right, moving on. Jerry Bolander taking on Nick Sanzo. Nick Sanzo stepping in for Takahashi because he broke his hand. This fight would end in 39 seconds in a suplex.
A suplex?
Not a suplex. A crucifix. I think this was a thrown fight.
Do you?
100%. There's no way that was a legitimate submission. Unless Jerry Bolander has some freakish strength that I don't know about.
There's one coming up with Vitor in one of these next couple cards, and it's just impossible to not be a fix.
I mean, because Jerry Bolander was absolutely... Jerry Bolander versus Oleg, 100% not even a question in my mind whatsoever. Bolander threw that fight, period. There's no way in hell he didn't throw that fight.
I remember that one.
That was his
Oleg
friend.
Looked all mad when it was over. Yeah,
it was his friend. They trained together. There's no way that Bolander did not throw that fight so that way Oleg could move on and not be tired.
Wait till you see this Vitor one because it's literally Vitor's training partner.
Yeah, see that. Well, that's what. Bolander was one of Oleg's training partners.
It's so silly. Though.
That's what I'm saying. Like this was that one was clearly. This one, there's at least like I'll say it's 50-50 in my mind. Like you could convince me either way pretty easily.
Maybe.
But this felt weird to me.
Yeah.
That just did not seem. First of all, how did he even get in that position in the first place?
Yeah.
It only lasts for 39 seconds. He gets him in that weird little crucifix position. He starts to squeeze and he just taps. It was weird.
Maybe he got scared.
That's the only thing that you could convince me.
It was just like a panic tap.
Is that he literally just got panicked and tapped.
Yeah.
But it's like, it was bizarre looking. It feels like that shouldn't be able to submit you. I'm not weird. Saying, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that if a big, strong, burly man got me into that position, that it would not be painful and that I would not tap if I was able to. I'm also not a professional fighter. Yeah. And I'm 5'9".
It's just not it's not a common thing. It's not a submission.
Weird.
It's not. But I guess that
was that guy's debut. So really, he's not a professional fighter either.
It may be.
So you could convince me that was not a flop, but it for me it felt like it. It felt like it was a let's just get in and get out. I'm getting
save some energy.
Save some energy.
Pay me.
We're done.
Yep.
Yeah, which I mean, he didn't need to save any energy because that was the last fight for him. I don't know. It was just funky to me. I was not a fan of how that went down. So let's move on to the heavyweight tournament bracket, shall we?
Yeah.
First fight, we had Scott Verozzo taking on Jim Mullen. Listen, Jim Mullen had absolutely no business being in that cage with Scott Verozzo.
Oh,
he took him down immediately
goodness.
and just absolutely destroyed him for 8
whooped
minutes.
his ass.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the fight ever, once Jim Mullen, whoever the hell, I don't know who Jim Mullen even is, once Mullen got taken down in the first, 30 seconds, when he landed that little spinning thing and that was it, the fight then didn't get back to the feet until it was a restart. And then on the restart, he just got knocked out, basically. He went down to the ground, he got some knees shoved in his face, then they called it.
My fiance watched that fight with me.
It's pretty brutal.
And she was just like, I did not expect him to be such a good fighter by looking at him. I was like, this guy's so ahead of his time. He's like the Roy Nelson of his era.
Right? It's what it feels like.
Yeah.
He has this weird athleticism that he shouldn't have.
Yeah, like he's a big fat guy, but when he gets out there and moves, he doesn't really move like a big fat guy.
Let's move on to the next fight, because if we're going to talk about athleticism, let's talk about Vitor Belfort making his debut
my goodness.
against, what was it, Teligman?
Trey Teligman.
Teligman. He seemed like a perfectly good fighter.
He's actually a great fighter.
He's nothing wrong with him.
His UFC career is going to continue.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Vitor has no known weaknesses.
Vitor Belfort, when he starts fighting, okay, when he throws the first series of punches, my first thing was, this is the best striker in the UFC that we've seen, period. Up to this point, best striker we've seen up to this point.
And the only other guy I feel like you can really make an argument for is Don Fry.
Sure.
Don Fry has some slick fucking boxing
Now,
this time.
Here's where those two people are different. Not only is this Belfort, I think has the best striking here, the speed at which he throws these punches.
See, that's the difference between the two. That's the big
terrifying.
That's a big gap. Like Don Fry might be a good boxer, but he ain't got that speed, baby.
Bro. When he throws that first exchange,
crack.
Oh my God. Like he lands one punch that sends Teligman like, oh, okay, yep, I'm in a fight.
Yep.
He backs up. He starts to try to engage. Vitor then throws
he just
six punches in maybe a second and a half.
Hits him in the body, in the head. I mean, his head's just
gets him down to the ground,
starts
throwing elbows real quick. I mean, he is just like a savage.
He mauls him.
Yep. Fight ends.
It's like a bear attack.
Minute and 17 seconds. Vitor looked incredible.
No known weaknesses.
So now you have Vitor Scott Ferozzo. Scott Ferozzo looks like he's 3 times the size of Vitor. Okay? You know Vitor is really strong.
You know he's going to be faster.
You know he's fast. You know he has good striking.
But you know that Scott's a badass,
but you also know that Scott's best. This dude slayed Tank.
Yeah.
You know? This dude...
And just mauled a guy, just like Vitor, right before this.
Yeah. It went on a hell of a lot longer.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think most people had to have assumed that, Vitor looked great in that first fight. Good for him.
But good luck against Scott.
Good luck against Scott Ferozzo, who's 2 times your size.
And good.
And just as strong.
Really good.
Way stronger, arguably, and has a win over a guy that I don't think you could beat.
Listen,
right?
man. When Vitor cracks him with that first, it's the first punch he threw. Man, he cracks him hard, dude.
And that was the moment. So you watch the first fight and you're like, all right, Vitor's awesome. Obviously, I know his career and stuff, but I'm trying to be in the moment. I'm like, Vitor's awesome.
This is a different era.
He looks great.
Yeah.
He looks fantastic. Then he fights Scott Ferozzo and he lands the first punch and you go, yep. This dude's legit. How are you supposed to fight this guy? Like, what are you supposed to do?
That first punch landed, and you could just see it on Scott. He was like, "Oh shoot,
goodness gracious,
I'm in trouble."
Yep. Vitor winds up getting not only the win, but the win in 43 seconds. He knocks him
against
out in 43
a really,
seconds.
really, really good opponent in this era.
Yep.
A guy that we've been nothing but impressed with thus far.
Which means UFC 13 has to be Vitor Tank. Has to be.
It's the Vitor show.
I haven't looked, but he has to be fighting.
Let's look now.
Tank. All right, so that's it for this card. Let's do a look ahead real quick to UFC 13. We have a lightweight and a heavyweight again. The heavyweights. Okay, the main heavyweight bout is Vitor Tank.
There it is.
Is Vitor Tank. Okay, let's see. Guy Metzger.
That's a big one.
Couture.
That's an even bigger one.
And Tito.
And that, I mean.
Woo! All right, cool. So
we're getting there.
We got 3 good ones. We got 3 good debuts. Is Metzger, is this his debut?
In the UFC.
I'm pretty sure. Let me make sure. Let me just make sure
he fights in Pride too later.
No, Guy Metzger was at UFC 4 and UFC 5.
Oh, geez.
But he was an alternate.
That's why we don't remember.
Yes, he was an alternate in both. So this is his first time being on the actual card.
I shouldn't talk.
This is his first time being on the actual card.
We didn't see those fights anyway. I'm being
No, they're
silly,
alternates.
Yeah, we didn't.
No.
That's
That's what I'm
why
saying.
I
That's
wouldn't
not
think
our
of it.
fault. That's not our fault. UFC he was at UFC 4, UFC 5, but as an alternate. We didn't watch him.
Did he win those?
He did.
Both of them.
He won both of them.
Okay.
He then goes over to Pancrase, spends quite a bit of time in Pancrase, and this is now his debut back in the UFC, where he is actually, on the card. He just has the fights at UFC 13 and does not return to the UFC ever.
But
he does. UFC 19. Right there. He comes back for UFC 19, and that's it. Spends everything else in Pride and Pancrase.
I was going to say, yeah, he's going to have another a long career in Pride still.
And then Couture, of course, that's a huge name.
One of the most legendary names
So
ever.
there you go.
in the sport.
I'm excited to get to UFC 13. Anything else you got, buddy, before we get out of here?
Nah, man. Happy to be back.
Fantastic, man. Me too. We will see you guys next week.
See ya.
All right, guys. So right now on the line, I do have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Mark Coleman. He's a bit under the weather. So Mark, I appreciate you joining us, even though you're not feeling too great.
That's okay. Thank you.
You're
Thanks
very
for
welcome.
calling.
So, alrighty, I want to talk about this. This interview is going to be associated with UFC 12. So that's kind of the bulk of what I want to talk about, but I do want to go back a little bit. So let's talk about your debut. I guess most importantly, what brought you to the UFC? Did someone approach you? Did you approach them? How did that process go?
I was the Olympic team, but honestly, I wasn't putting an all-out effort into it. And when I seen the first UFC, it was just immediate that that's something I knew I had to get into it somehow. I didn't know how I was going to get into it, but I knew that was what I wanted to do and what I could do very well.
Yeah. And then were you just approached down the line? And
then what happened is at the Olympic trials, I lost in the semifinals, so wasn't going to be the Olympic representative. And there was a manager there, and he was scouting talent, and he pretty much was ahead of the game. He kind of knew that wrestlers were where it's at, and he went to the Olympic trials, and he was looking at me, Tom Erickson, and Mark Kerr. And when I lost, he grabbed me and introduced himself, pulled me into the room, and sat down and told me he had a slot in UFC 10 because he, I guess I'll call it, he weaseled his way into Dan Severn's corner somehow.
Uh-huh.
And then he weaseled his way into Don Fry's corner. And then the UFC kind of figured out this guy knew a little something, and he had told them he had other guys that would destroy, Don Fry and Dan Severn, and so he pulled me into a room, sat me down, and told me he had a slot in UFC 10, and I took it from there. I said, "Where do I sign?"
Nice.
He had a big old, pretty nasty contract. But I didn't give a shit what it said. I didn't care what it said. I just knew I needed to be in UFC 10.
Yeah.
And I convinced Richard Hamilton. I convinced him that I would beat Mark Kerr and Tom Erickson's ass. No offense to those guys, because I love them both, but I just personally felt I would beat their butts.
Yeah.
And I told him I'd beat anybody's ass that was going to be in UFC 10. And I told him I'd be out, and he was from Phoenix. I said, I'll be out there on, give me a couple of days to go back home and get my shit together a little bit. And I said, I'll be out to Phoenix, and I said, I'll do whatever you ask, which was a lie, because I certainly wasn't going to do whatever this guy asked, because I didn't trust him at all as a coach. So I just basically went out there, and I had about 30 days until UFC 10, and the main goal was to get in shape, just to get in the best shape I could. I had my game plan immediately. I'm going to take these people to the ground, and I'm going to pound them, ground and pound, and certainly headbutts was way on top of my mind. I did plan on using headbutts quite a bit because it makes sense that it's probably one of the most effective weapons, and it certainly was. I wouldn't want to be underneath a headbutt coming at me, and it does take a little bit of technique to throw a headbutt.
Mm-hmm.
People just think you throw it, but no, you have to know what you're doing. You have to know what part of your head to use and what part of their face to hit them with,
Yeah.
and I was pretty effective with it, and it kind of opened up everything else. You hit the rib shots, and when I took people down, I didn't. Sometimes it got turned into called lay and pray. And no, when I took somebody down and when I went to hit him in the ribs, I didn't just want to tap the ribs. I wanted to break the ribs, and I hit hard on the ground. I didn't hit so hard standing up because I just wasn't didn't have no confidence in my stand-up game. I hit pretty hard standing up in practice, but when the lights came on, I immediately just couldn't resist trying to take the guy down, and then hit him as hard as I could with elbows, knees, punches, headbutts, and just hit him until he quits. That was the game plan.
Part of the series is we are watching from UFC 1 and UFC 1, 2, 3 and on. And I will say that one of the things I was surprised about early on was the lack of headbutts. Because I was just thinking, if you can do it, I mean, it seems like that would be such an effective thing, as you're noting. But I guess what I'm forgetting is that it requires a lot of technique. And if there was something missing from early UFC, it was a lot of people with good technique. I mean, that was really missing. And the guys who did have good technique, who came in, ruled the roost. I mean, technique was every technique and cardio.
Technique and cardio, the headbutts, yeah, people don't believe, just think you just throw a headbutt. Well, a lot of people throw a headbutt with their forehead. A lot of people throw a headbutt with their nose. Not too smart. You got to throw the headbutt with the hard part of your head into the soft part of the other guy's face.
Yep.
I do remember in UFC 10, it took Big Daddy Goodrich down.
Of course.
And after about 8 minutes of him holding on to the top of the cage, which was kind of bizarre in hindsight, but I didn't have no problem with it because he left himself open for the uppercut. But once I got him down and got him on his back, I threw about 2 or 3 headbutts, and then I took a look at him, and he opened his mouth wide open. He exposed his teeth to me, inviting me to headbutt him right in the mouth. And well, like I said, it takes technique, and luckily I was smart enough to realize, well, no thank you, Big Daddy, but here's one right below your eye, so I set one to his eyeball, and it didn't take too many because it had to be a scary thing. It had to be a scary thing, and Big Daddy bellied down, and then I put the boots in, and it was over.
Yeah.
But the headbutt just it just opened up everything else. It just kind of, at the time, it just kind of wasn't really fair.
Yeah,
it really wasn't fair.
Speaking of grabbing the cage, something that also seemed really unfair early on. It seemed like this kind of transition to UFC 12. This seemed to be the first event where they actually took the grabbing the cage serious, and then we'd move on, and it would culminate to Oleg doing something very similar to what Gary Goodrich did in grabbing the literally top of the cage, arms wrapped around, before it finally became a literal rule. But yeah, UFC 12 featured the first time that I really heard John McCarthy warning people about grabbing the cage. So it's kind of interesting that it had transitioned to that piece. So moving into UFC 12, I mean, you are the UFC's first heavyweight champion. Which is pretty incredible that it took more than 11 events, because there's the 2 Ultimates. Speaking of which, so you were supposed to be on Ultimate 11.5, and I believe you got sick in the days leading up to it. Yeah,
I got sick for actually, it was like over a month out, and back then you didn't need much. Back then the 30-day training camp was a pretty good training camp.
Sure.
But honestly, I just got back from Brazil, and I don't know. I must have ate some bad fruit or something, but I came back and I was stuck in my bed for 2-3 weeks. I kept telling them I was still going to do it. I was planning on doing it, but it just wouldn't go away, and I really I couldn't even get out of bed. I did try to get out of bed and go work out, but I'd get about one set in, and it'd be it. I'd just be drained, exhausted. Never really did find out what the hell it was, but it did finally go away, thank God.
We're good, yeah. And, well, especially when going into something like an ultimate where everybody involved is really good. There are no cans, so to speak, right? When
it was
the best of the best.
It was incredibly disappointing. That's something that, in hindsight, it still eats me a little bit. I really would have liked to have been in that tournament. Don Fry won that, right?
11.5, I think. 2 seconds. He did.
Yeah, Don Fry won that one.
He beat Tank.
He beat Tank in the finals. So it's something that I certainly think I could have won for sure.
Yeah. Well, you'd already beaten him, so there's precedent there, yeah. And then, we got to talk about 12, but I do want to ask you one more thing because it kind of relates to this. Are there any fights, and I feel like there has to be, are there any fights that just never happened that you wish could have happened? So I know for me, you never end up fighting Ken Shamrock.
Well, you nailed it, and you nailed it. That's the one that I most definitely wish that would have happened because I get that question asked to me quite a bit. Did you ever fight Shamrock, and did you ever fight Tank? So both of them, I would have loved to fight Tank. And I was supposed to fight him in the damn finals of 11, but
sure.
we seen what happened there. But Ken Shamrock, I would have loved to have fought him. And and again, nothing against Ken, but personally, I think I would have got him.
I think you would have too, and that's my non-biased opinion. I
definitely would have had to be concerned about the ankle locks, but that's something I probably would have went over extensively before the fight. But I don't think he could take too many of my headbutts, to be honest with you.
I have kind of an off the wall one for you, because he never ends up fighting in MMA ever again. But it was Mark Schultz.
Mark Schultz, good friend of mine. I love this guy. We've been staying in contact on social media, and he was a hero of mine. Somebody I idolized and looked up to. He was 5-6 years older than me, and he just dominated freestyle wrestling. He dominated, and when we were at training camps, I was a youngster, and he just, everybody was afraid of this guy. I mean, he just walked around he had a mean look on his face. He didn't really talk to many people. He's opened up quite a bit over the years. But back then, he was just all to himself, and he was a scary man. And I did get the opportunity to wrestle him one time in practice, and you beat me like I think 3-0. And at the time, I was just very pleased with how close the score was. It really wasn't close. It really wasn't close, but. I was shaking in my boots because Mark Schultz was just a guy that everybody looked up to and everybody feared. He was a feared man, and I guess that would have been an interesting fight. I think it would have been probably a lot of it would have been on our feet because it would have been hard to take each other down.
Right.
That's for sure.
It's one of those fights that it doesn't go how people think it's going to be a wrestling affair, but you wind up seeing the opposite because both guys' defense is so strong that it just keeps the thing on the feet the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, and size does matter. I always said size matters, and I did have some size.
You did.
I think that would have helped out, and who knows what would have happened. That guy is
an animal.
He was an animal in wrestling, and who knows what would have happened if he would have continued fighting because he's also very, very, very skilled in jiu-jitsu as well.
Oh yeah, he rolled around with Hickson. I remember I interviewed him for the UFC 9 episode, and I got that piece of it. He also told me the story of why he never fought again, which I hadn't heard this before. He didn't end up fighting again because he was on the front page of the BYU. It wasn't BYU. It was because he was teaching at BYU at the time. But it was Salt Lake City. He was on the Salt Lake City Tribune or something. Yeah. He was on the front page with blood coming out of his mouth, and he got called to the office of whoever, the chancellor or something, whoever's in charge of the university at BYU, called him into the office and said, "If you ever do this again, you're fired." And he chose to stay at BYU and teach and coach.
Geez, well. I guess I should have known that, but I didn't. But he did end up going over to Brazil and doing some. But that's a little bit fishy.
Sure,
that whole show's fishy. So I'm not even going to call that a fight because it was a little bit suspect.
Okay, well let's get to 11 then, because you get to Brian Johnston in the finals.
Not the finals. It was the second round.
It was the semis.
Yes, Brian Johnston. They gave me an option of Brian Johnston or I forget the other guy, but I remember Brian Johnston in UFC 10, and he was about 20 pounds lighter, and this and that, and so I told them to put him on my side of the bracket, and he showed up looking like a monster. So I was like, wait a minute, but anyways, fortunately, once again, it just wasn't really fair because, nobody had my wrestling skills. Yeah. Nobody had my skills, and, I was able to take Johnson down. And, once again, the headbutt was a big factor in that fight as, I hit him with about 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 of them, and that was about all that's about all he wanted. He tapped out. He tapped out after that. No disrespect. I mean, obviously it's not legal anymore for a reason because it was so deadly and it was so dangerous.
I see now. UFC 11.
But you had to have the balls to throw it, like you said. Yeah. Not many people threw it, and it was my number one weapon because it opened up everything else. You throw a headbutt to a face, guess what? They're going to put both their hands over their face, and then that leaves their ribs wide open. And I'm going to plow them in the ribs. I'm not just going to tap them in the ribs. I'm going to try to break their ribs on the ground, and then they got to bring their hand down, and then you can throw a punch. And then they bring their hand up, and then you throw a punch to the ribs, and they bring it back down. You throw a headbutt. It just there was always something open, and I always found the open area.
UFC 11 is now flooding back to me. When I said finals, it's because I forgot that the finals of UFC 11.
That's why when you called me,
I was said, a no fight.
I said, "Well, what do you really want to talk about UFC 11 for? Really, kind of a downer."
It was a bizarre. And
it was bizarre because I'm back in I'm back in the locker room. I watched Tank and Frozen go at it, and honestly, my confidence was obviously just through the roof. I beat both my guys in about 2 minutes apiece.
Yep.
And I watched these two big guys go, I don't know, 20 minutes or so.
The first guy was 45 seconds. Yeah, you weren't in there for very long. First guy was 45 seconds.
Sanchez, okay.
Yeah,
Sanchez.
That was 45 seconds.
God bless him. Nice guy. But you did have to, I did have a lot of confidence going into that fight, but you still have to have respect for a 6'4", 340-pound man. You still have to have some respect for him, but I was pretty sure I was going to get that one.
He was the guy that looked like he was the bus driver, if I remember correctly. If I remember UFC 11, I remember looking at it and going, is he like the bus driver? Like, what is he doing in there? And then you come in, of course, you have a body that looks like it was, hand carved by some type of deity. I mean, you're just an absolute monster at this time. And you look across to Julian Sanchez, was he the one where he was wearing a T-shirt? Was that event?
Yeah, he had tights and a T-shirt.
He was wearing like a gray loose T-shirt. It was like, oh boy, this guy is just wandered in here.
Yeah, you always got to give a little bit of respect.
Of course.
That's about all I gave was just a little bit, because I was pretty sure this guy was going to the ground real quick, and honestly. I didn't really want to. I wanted to entertain the fans, so I did throw a few punches, this and that, but I didn't want to just sit there and maul him.
Yeah.
So I mean, because he just he gave me the side headlock crank, and I'm one of the few guys that's ever used that move, but it's very effective.
Yeah.
And it was simple on him, and I wanted to be an entertainer, but at the same time, I just kind of, I didn't want to sit there and just smash this guy.
Yeah. I will say, and this is the credit I'll give Julian Sanchez. He did something that I would never do in a million years. So there you go. I will give him all the credit in the world for that. He did something that I would never do in a million years. So good for him.
Yeah, but I think he was just very happy to be there. So
Exactly.
I don't know where they found him at it, but what the heck? I guess I'll take it.
Right.
And then the second round, I had Brian Johnston,
who I've also talked to for the podcast. We talked to him for UFC 11. Actually, we talked to him for this one because he had the infamous. When Big John was separating him, Big John kind of shouldered him in the face, and it wound up blooding up his nose, and he had a little freak out.
Yeah,
he was not happy about it.
Yeah, I remember that. Big John pulled me off pretty hard one time. When I had Big Daddy, I had the boots in on Big Daddy. He yanked me off. But we've talked about it many times, and he learned from it. Big John, he was learning on the job as he went, and he learned from his mistakes. And he actually holds his seminars, and he told me he shows the time that he did pull me off, Big Daddy Goodrich, and he damn near blew my knee out because it was stuck underneath there. And but he learned from it, and he no hard feelings at all, of course. Yeah. But he shows that in his seminars of what not to do.
Right.
Because a referee, he is the man, and he is the most important man in there, and he's got to know exactly the right time to stop that fight.
Yeah.
If you stop it too early, people are pissed. If you stop it too late, people are pissed. So it's a tough call for a referee for sure. He's got to be right on top of things, and Big John's definitely one of the best, if not the best in the business.
Yeah, you got to walk that line. Well, I appreciate your time. I know I have a buddy who's a big wrestling fan, and he wanted me, Keith Schillen, I'll give him a shout out, big wrestling guy. He wanted me to ask you a question. Have you been following Kyle Snyder? Because obviously your alma mater is Ohio State, where my little brother goes. But
nice.
No, he's not a wrestler.
Nice.
He's about 6 foot. He's about 6'10", give or take. He hasn't been formally measured in quite some time, but he's
Wow.
extraordinarily tall. So I don't know.
No
if he could-
basketball, huh?
no basketball, and every time someone asks him, he gets very upset about it.
I bet he does. I bet he does.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, he goes to Ohio State as well. But yeah, so Kyle Snyder. I mean, I guess I probably don't need to introduce him too much.
No, sir, you
especially
don't.
to you. He has
No, sir.
expressed interest in doing MMA or in going into MMA. So Keith was wanting to know if that's a guy that you'd be willing to connect with, and kind of help get going in MMA if Kyle Snyder ever wanted something like that.
Well, I've already, I took him to the UFC in Cleveland. I think it was
203
Overeem versus
Stipe. Yeah,
the,
UFC
the
203.
champ. I took him to that with me, and we sitting in the front row, and you could just tell the guy is smelling the cage, smelling everything. He definitely has. I know he deep down in his heart he wants to do it, but at the same time, this guy has set so many goals for himself in wrestling, so many amazing goals. He wants to win 4 more Olympics. That'd be a total of 5. So it's going to be pretty hard to do both. But I did tell him, when we're sitting there talking, I did tell him, I said, you might want to, just in case, you might want to, start rolling around with some jiu-jitsu people. It's not going to hurt your wrestling at all because it's going to help your wrestling drastically, learning jiu-jitsu. And it's not going to take away from his workout because it's a hell of a workout in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I told him, I offered to, come in there and hold the pads for him, or get somebody that comes in that can hold the pads better than I do, and just wrestling is such a grind, but he is the perfect man for this grind because there's nobody like him. There's nobody that I've ever seen been like him, and I do think if he can avoid the injuries, he will end up being the greatest wrestler in the history of wrestling, which is saying quite a bit.
That's incredible.
But I just really believe he can do it if he can avoid the injuries. But at the same time, he's got to have that itch. He's got to watch these fights, and he is such an athlete. He could have played, if he was a couple inches taller, he'd be playing pro football. That's how good he was in high school football.
Yeah.
But he stopped growing. He stopped growing at 5'10", and it's pretty hard to, at 5'10", there's not many positions for him to play. So he would have been he's just such an incredible athlete. I could see him getting in MMA, and if he, as dedicated as he is, if he would get the right and do the right training, yes, I believe he would be the champion, the UFC, either 205 or heavyweight champion. He'd have to decide, but he is just. I know he's got that itch. I know he's got that smell. I know he wants to do it, but it's just. I think it's just so hard for him to walk away from wrestling because he is the greatest. He's almost the greatest of all time already. Just give him a few more years and rack up his stats. But such a great guy, such a nice guy, such a good Christian guy. I would love to see him make the switch over, but at the same time, wrestling would be losing one of the greatest people in the history of the sport. So I don't know what he's going to do, but I did say if you're even considering it, you might as well start doing some jiu-jitsu because it's only going to help your wrestling. And, you might as well start, hitting the focus pads because that's a heck of a workout in itself. But he's pretty set in his ways. Kyle Snyder's set in his ways. He's got his own game plan. He's a very smart man, and he's going to do things his way. Mm-hmm. And so far, it's
working.
It's been simply incredible. He had that one one little blurb there with the guy from Michigan, but you know, a lot of things, you know, that's going to happen. The guy from Michigan, Mr. Kuhn, he's going to be a very good freestyle wrestler himself. So
Yeah.
he's not like he was just a college wrestler. That guy's very good freestyle wrestler and so athletic for his size. It happens, but right when he got beat, I made a couple bets right away. I said he's gonna beat him in the Big Tens, and he's gonna beat him in the Nationals. So I had my money on Snyder all the way.
Yeah. Well, wonderful.
And he made the adjustments, and you know, you can't play around with a guy that's 285 pounds. You got to be perfect. You know, you got to be perfect, and he was. And I just love the kid, and man, it would be nice. It would be really nice if he could switch over to fighting, but I just don't know if it's going to happen because he's got so many goals in wrestling. You know, he wants to be a 5-time Olympic champion, which that I think that had to be a record, wouldn't it?
I can't imagine. I think it would have to be.
Yeah, I think he can do it if he can stay healthy. I mean, he'll be right. He'll still be in his early 30s or whatever, and he could pull it off. So we'll see what happens. But I definitely would like to see him in the fighting world. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for giving me your time, Mark. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. You have a good day.
Hey, you too.
All right. Bye.